Good afternoon, board buddies. We got a very special episode going on today. Thank you for joining. This is the Boerboel Show. I'm your host, Jordan Pittman, where we talk about everything in totality encompassing the Boerboel breed. Today we got a very special guest. We got actually two very special guests. We got young Jordan, the next generation of Boerboel, and we got Nico Killian, one of the original. Well, you can explain what my perspective. Nico has been involved with Boerboels from the very beginning of the inception of the breed. Is that correct, Nico?
Yes, good evening, gentlemen. Our family's been at we got our first Boerboels in 1981. So yeah, we've been in the game since. I've personally only been breeding for 12 years, but yeah, I know all the founding, and I know a lot of the founding fathers. The race Kuman of Hofni Boerboels. We were personal house friends. I grew up in their house basically, and the Diagers that lives opposite the road from them. So yeah, I know a lot of the old breeders that started the breed back in the 80s.
1981, ladies and gentlemen. I was born in 82. So that give you a little bit of history. And I consider myself to be a veteran. So Nico has a very great experience with the breed. He's been there since the inception. The breed was standardized or in what 1983.
Yeah, in the 80s it started with the SABT and the HSBC. So
Wow.
historical Boerboel organization.
Yeah, so today what we're going to get into is what was the true function of the Boerboel breed, because I think that it's something that to be clarified, and then we can get it directly from the Prodigal horse's mouth. Nico was there when they founded the breed. He's had great experience with the breed. What was it like back then, Nico?
People don't understand what the breed was originally bred for back in the day. They were mostly guardian dogs.
Okay.
Um, they were they were farm dogs, raised up in started off in Natal, where most of the stock started off, where Hofni was, Dietary. Those years, well, the crime rate in South Africa wasn't high, so the farms weren't fenced in completely. So you had a lot of problems with vermin animals coming in, predators coming in, jackal, hyena, brown hyena. Um, Contrary to people's belief, lions are not roaming the streets in South Africa. They're only in big game reserves. So they were there as farm protectors and keeping the jackals away from sheep, um, being an early warning system for the family, to as guardians for the house, and then of course as pets as well because of their temperament. They make excellent pets.
Right. So it's not this junkyard dog. It's not a vicious roaming dog. It's not exactly a hunting dog. It's not exactly a herding dog. I always classify them as a utility breed. This is what I had kind of learned in my experience. When you start talking about a farm dog, you're talking about the different chores that a farmer may be involved with. Depending on the type of farm, you have different chores. So what type of farms are there in South Africa?
Well, the bulk of the farms in South Africa, well, we have, depends on which area you are. We have the more of dry, arid areas, where we have sheep farmers, goat farmers, cattle, then also crops, maize, mealies, soya, that type of thing. So, South Africa, we've got everything that you can think of that we farm with. Um, so for that perspective, always had to have a dog that's been able to work with that can accept livestock as well, that can work with sheep, that won't go after sheep, and for that reason, they they were never used as sheep herding dogs. Let's face the fact: the Boerboel is not the cleverest dog out there.
Right.
They were never used to herd sheep. Maybe one or two dogs over the years that got trained well enough to do that. But overall, they were there as guarding dogs in and around the homestead. One or two or three of them would jump on the back of the bucky or follow the horses when they go out to go check on the livestock. But as a norm, they were basically house based or yard based dogs. There was a few exceptional dogs that will follow the farmers around and follow the horses around, but that was not the norm. That was the exception.
Right. So in most cases, you got a dog that is capable of doing these different and carrying out these different tasks. But was there any the specific purpose for the Boerboel was? What would you say?
Guarding dog for the family and family companion.
Family companion. And that's what I like to promote the breed as. I feel like it's the ultimate family companion, with the guarding capabilities, much like a Labrador. It's got some intelligence, but it's not very specific, like you say, a herding breed. It's not very specific as a hunting breed. They primarily is a guardian that is capable of many different tasks, performing multiple different tasks. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, because I've been breeding the dogs, I've noticed, in my observation, various different styles of the dog. I don't feel like some dogs would excel at different tasks, and I'm like, well, all of these dogs are coming from the same, litter, but within that litter, I have noticed a variety of types, a variety of styles. So that makes perfect sense. And but it's good to hear from your mouth, from you, because I don't have that personal experience.
Yeah, they are for us. They are even down South Africa. For us, they're predominantly guarding dogs, and then they temperament in and around your house with your family with kids. That's what they are for us. Um, Contrary belief, yeah, they can bite. They're supposed to bite when necessary. But for us, especially in South Africa, with how violent South Africa is and the amount of crime we have in South Africa, we use them as an early warning system for us.
Right, exactly. And I think that's a really a great function and task for the dog, because it's not fair to expect the dog to do all of these extra things once I mean, you have to back a dog up, because like you said, I know that if it's violent and it's dangerous, the dog is just a temporary obstacle to overcome, and it can be overcome, but you have to have, it's a first line of defense. That's how I classify them. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. The early warning, the 30 seconds wake up call you get to get yourself ready for anything that happens in your property, or to see there's a break in or something at your stores, or there's somebody fiddling around in the barn. Just an early warning system to get you alert that there's something on the farm that's on the farmstead that's on the homestead that is not like it should be.
Right, right. So in today's modern society, that's why I feel that it's the ideal dog for the modern lifestyle, because you can expect, you have this warning system. You're looking for the dog to just give you some ears, give you some eyes, to give you a little bit of time to prepare yourself. You're not necessarily always looking for a dog to bite someone. You're not looking for the dog to engage, just to always be or running across the street, chasing down deers, chasing down people, chasing down things. I think it's good for the dog to stay close by home, be very concerned. My dogs are like always within proximity. They don't really wander. They don't go far away. Where I have other dogs in the neighborhood, they maybe wander off. You constantly calling them back. That really doesn't serve. That's not the ideal situation when you have a dog that's wandering off or chasing down deer, chasing down squirrel. We have deers, and I'm like, well, I guess maybe y'all might have gazelles there or something like that. If the dog is out chasing some gazelles or chasing something, they're more interested in pursuing game. Then there is no it's not very valuable as a protection dog. It's not very valuable as a guard dog.
Exactly. Because we understand these dogs come from farms. Now, if you have a dog that's going to chase around the farmer's goats or his sheep or his prize antelope that he's got, um, they're not going to last on the farms.
Right.
Farmers will get rid of those dogs because they must be able to work with livestock and accept livestock. Um, I always laugh at these jokes where there's this one tale where a guy says no, the bull will grab the bull by the nose and topple the bull. Well, if that happens in South Africa with a farmer's prize bull, he'll shoot that dog straight on the spot.
Mm,
You need an animal that will look after your other animals, not be a hindrance to them.
right. Not a threat to him. He's not trying to
Exactly.
shoot the animals up. So
Exactly. So,
can you tell us a little bit about the selection process? How were dogs deemed as being prized, the prized stud dog? What would be some characteristics of a valued stud dog in those days in that era?
well, there's a nice video. If you look on the SABS web page on the SABS YouTube channel, there's a video of 1990 where they did, unfortunately, it's Afrikaans the video, but you can see that they went on a tour right over South Africa and they identified the dogs based on uh, physical characteristics,
Okay,
um, appraisal system,
right.
um, where they got where they got the foundation dogs from, and where they said, right, this is now the type of bull that we want. Now, if you go back on those videos, you'll see most of those dogs are actually coming from farms or small holdings. They weren't dogs that came in from houses. The bull only became very popular in South Africa as a town dog that lives in towns in from the 90s. Before that, they were basically farm dogs. Um, so for that reason, they were really popular till the 90s when they actually started becoming commercialized. When people started bringing them to towns as pets. So if you look at that video, you'll see it's a tour. It's on SAB's YouTube channel for the tour of 1990. Then you can see there how they selected the dogs, and you'll see the selection there as well, where they penalized dogs that didn't function well.
Mm,
So functionality has always been very high on the radar, very high on the scope for the bull. The bull must be a functional, movable dog that can move. The animal that is capable to run a couple of kilometers at least. They are not long distance runners. They're not hunting dogs that can run down like the greyhounds. But at least it must be animal that can move. Now, normally as well, animal that moves and has got proper agility also will become a dog that gets a little bit older. And these days now, when I see with all these overweight, very heavy dogs, people are getting battling to get dogs to 8 years old. Now, for us in South Africa, it was strange if a bull didn't make 10, 12, 14 years.
right. So let me touch on that a little bit. My theories and my positions. I feel that the heavier dog, you definitely shorten the lifespan, much like with the human, because of the constant pressure that's being applied to the joints, the arteries, the organs. They have to work much harder. They have to work much harder because of that. Traditionally, now I come from a farm background, right? So that's where I first fell in love with dogs. And it's in the farm back in my hometown in Georgia. Um, and those dogs were kind of like you said, they were outside. They didn't go to the vet. They didn't maybe they didn't eat every day, or I mean they just survived basically off of what we gave them and was remnants of what we ate. So I think that they don't have all of this access, these luxuries that are afforded to the modern style of dogs that are constantly just being fed, where you're feeding the dog 2-3 times a day, trying to grow the dog as fast as possible. What are your sentiments to that? How did these dogs end up getting larger? Is it because of the way that we feeding the dogs, or is it the genetic selection? What are your thoughts on that?
Pet trade.
One more
That's
time.
the problem. We started breeding dogs too big because of the demand. People want bigger and better. Now, not all dogs should be bigger and better. The moment the bull became commercialized, breeders started breeding these big dogs because that's what the market wanted.
Ah, so it's the market demand. That's kind of the same thing that they saying ruins a lot of different breeds because everybody tend to believe that the larger is the better. We tend to get caught up in these weights, these sizes. What do you think is the ideal size for a male weight range?
Right. Now, the Boerboel is one of the very few breeds that measured at withers in
Okay.
centimeters. So if the dog is 65 centimeters tall at withers, the head circumference must be 65 centimeters and must weigh plus minus 65 kilos.
So 65 kilos, that's like 130 to 140
Yeah,
pounds.
right about there.
And
So
then
now the SABS breed standard allows for 1 to 1.2. So the 1.2 then will take a male at 65 centimeters, anything from 65 kilos up to about 78 kilos. So that could in that scale there. But even on that, on the heavier side, at 78 kilos, that's quite a big dog already.
yeah, 70.
So I always laugh at these people that say they got 200-pound dogs. That's not a dog. That's a lion. Because
Yeah,
if you take that dog's 200 pounds, that's what 100 kilos, 92 kilos, 100 kilos. That means that dog should be in the region of about 90 centimeters tall. That's a
wow.
great day.
That's extremely tall. So 90 centimeters, 65 centimeters is 25 inches, right?
Yeah,
That's moderate
that's
height.
the
When you
that's
start
the
talking,
ideal height. That's the ideal height we want them on. That's ideal.
yeah, it's my personal preference because I'm trying to build the complete dog, a large dog that is still capable of athleticism and agility. I feel like the ideal size for a male is like 140 to 160 pound range, 25, 27 inches. I don't know too much. I don't really measure the height, but I like a dog that is still capable of moving around. And so I think when you start getting into this exaggerated size, you compromise the ability to run, the ability to move, the ability to be a purposeful oriented dog. Is that what you think?
Yeah, for me, I like the 70, the 68, 70 centimeter tall boys. That's why I like them. I like them slightly taller. Um, I don't like the oval muscular dogs
Okay.
because they cannot run. I like the leaner type Boerboel. I've always had. Um, I like the working class Boerboel, although there is the heavier ones out there. Um, so that's where I am with my males. But my females, again, I'm going to go back and have extremely feminine females.
Extremely.
Um, yeah, today our feminines are completely butch. Some of these females come into a ring, and then you must look at the on the backside to see if it's a male or female. So the sexual dimorphism is a huge problem becoming now in the Boerboel. Our females are way too big, way too butch, and by bringing in way too big, way too butch, and way too fat females, you're starting to affect their fertility now, and you're also starting to affect for them to pup on their own.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that. I'm glad that to hear that from you as well. I feel the same way. I'm very strongly in favor of the feminine females. If you look historically from the breed, Dapper Nina, Vanderbilt Tosca, those dogs to me, in my I didn't witness either of those dogs. Leo Neum, those dogs all appear to me to be very feminine, to be not very masculine, but were still great producers. In my experience, my personal experience, the larger I've had 170-pound females, I've had several of them. They tend to be terrible moms. They tend to be
Exactly.
very small litters, and then they're not the best moms. That 120, 130-pound female have large litters, great fertility, larger amount of puppies, and they tend to be great moms. They're very attentive. I mean, they're natural mothers. I'm glad that you said that the butch the is this what did you call it, a morphism of the genes is not a
Yeah,
natural.
sexual morphism. It is the fact that a female starts looking like a male, or a male starts looking like a female.
Exactly. Yeah, sexual morphism. And that's occurring because of the selection. When you start leaning towards the exaggerations, you start getting into this uh, overly exaggerated features, and that this is not the natural way. A female should be petite, fine, feminine, and that will bring that coincides with maternal instincts, nurturing characteristics, so on and so forth. I'm not looking for the female dog to go out and take the charge and take the lead in terms of going out and being the first line of defense. That's where the male, the bigger dog, comes in because he's larger, he's more capable. It seems it is more ideal for him is to be that dog that takes that front.
See, the problem we have is because we are interfering with nature by putting certain males with certain females, and we're using artificial insemination now, and we're using C sections on females now. Those dogs back in the day would not have made it because the males they would have been infertile or wouldn't have enough pups. They wouldn't have pupped, or the pups wouldn't have survived, or they couldn't get the pups out, and they would have died in nature.
Mm,
Now, because we are interfering with this, we are boosting these females even further now. Back in the olden days with the Boerboel, they weren't put in cages to have pups or had heat lamps over them. The female will have puppies anywhere on the property, in a hole, under a car, in the garage, in the barn, between the bags of empty bags somewhere. Then suddenly you'll see the female come out. Okay, she had pups. Then you go run around and look around to see where the pups are.
mm,
So they were never helped. AIs back in the day did not exist.
mm.
We never did artificial insemination with dogs. Um, the problem we have these days now, because we're doing all this artificial insemination, um, so you artificially inseminating female that shouldn't have taken in the first place.
Right.
Now she gets a litter of 3 or 4 or 5 pups because she's actually not very fertile, and then those puppies become the next generation. Now you do a C-section as well on that female, so you don't know if she can actually give birth naturally.
Mm.
So now, a couple of generations down the line, you have females that are infertile, females that cannot give birth naturally, and females that battle to take to handle males.
Right. And I said that too. If you look at other species of animals that have been domesticated for many generations, I use the quail, the farming of the quail. They don't nest on the eggs. They don't they don't sit on top of the eggs, so they don't hatch them. They can't produce without the use of an incubator. They basically have been completely domesticated. They cannot survive without the interference of humans. So
Yes,
basically, what you're telling us is through the artificial inseminations, through the C sections, we are essentially going to wash away the ability of the dogs to reproduce naturally, and that natural function was basically a way uh, uh, of culling dogs, so to speak. That word, if
yes.
we you would those dogs would not have had puppies. Those dogs would not have passed on their traits to the next generation. And then because we are interfering now, and we are basically essentially uh supple-
Manipulating.
manipulating and supplementing the dog's fertility and the ability to produce and have puppies. Because of that, we are starting to get that's allowing us to have these exaggerations, these
Exactly.
these these masculine females, which is detrimental to the long term vitality of the breed. When you start talking
And
about longevity,
exactly, because now that's eventually that's going to start affecting now the rest of the dog. Now you're going to have bad top lines because the females are too heavy. You're going to have bad hips, bad elbows. Um, you have eye problems now because got the heads of the females are getting too big. So you start having entheropia and entheropia. So the eyes becomes worse, and you start compounding the problem.
Right, with no solution. So if and then what I see is this reoccurring across the breed, which is like very alarming to me when you start having the same dogs or the popular dogs, that carry these traits, they become extremely desired or they become what's accepted as the norm. And then we start to eliminate the alternatives where we start doing eliminating the alternatives. There is no solution, so we end up with a breed across the breed. This is the standard. This and that is because I'm gonna tell you something. For me, I personally did not do C-sections when I first started. I never had to have that. I never did the AIs. I think it probably started for me around 2014 when I started doing my first AIs and C-sections, but it was just something that was unheard of. My first male was only 106 pounds. He was a, a great dog, nonetheless. He produced larger dogs, but I don't think that it would be fair to eliminate him from the gene pool because of his size. I think that the smaller dog is a very valuable dog, especially in terms of male and female. When you're talking about varieties within the pack, the different roles within the pack. Can you speak on that a little bit? The, what do you think about the different types of Boerboel? Is that a myth, or you being involved with the breed for as long as you have? Um, are there different types of Boerboels?
Back in the day, in the 80s, 90s, when they did the tour, they said there were four types of dogs. There was the hound, the slightly higher dog, slightly skinnier. Then there was a more bigger, heavier set dog, and then there was the more athletic type of dogs. End of the day, yes, there is a couple of different phenotypes in the breed.
Right,
Um, there is the heavier set ones, like humans, and there is the more agile ones. But at the end of the day, is we must go back to what they were bred for. They were bred for functionality. So even if it's heavier, it should be still be a dog that's able to move.
right.
Today I see males. They bring them to the show ring. They run once around the show ring of 20 meters, and the dog goes down and it can't get up anymore because it's tired. It cannot run. They're overweight blobs.
Yeah, that's totally unacceptable. And I don't know how much that has to do with the way that we feed in the dogs, or is it the way that we keep the dogs. I feel one of the bigger issues that we face with the days of society, especially here in America, a lot of the dogs are crated or they live in very confined spaces, 5 by 10, kennel 5 by 5, 5 by 10s, and you see them locked down in there for the majority of the day, majority of the time. The dogs are not moving around. The dogs are not active as much in the large. I think back if you so when I'm thinking about the farm from where I come from, the dogs were loose and they were free to roam, come and go as they pleased. I think when you start locking the dog down, you don't give it a chance to activate this respiratory system, to activate the circulatory system, and so on and so forth. So you don't really test it and you don't know where it is.
Yes, the easiest way you can see that on these big dogs is you look at their muscle tone. They
Mm.
don't have any muscle tone. That means those dogs are not getting exercise.
Right, right. So that's a big part of it too. What a lot of these they just not moving. They're not moving around, so they become larger. They become overweight, and then they're not able to perform. I think that there's a real tragedy within the breed when they come out like that. I think that it's very important for us to keep that function aspect as a priority in our selections. We want dogs.
The problem we have now is, as I said, going back again, people are breeding these big overweight dogs. They're putting them together to get even bigger and fatter dogs because that's what the market wants. But as as breeders, we must go back to our roots and say, guys, this is not what the breed standard says. What does the breed standard say? It has to be a 1 to 1 to 1.2. So for every centimeter dog's height, that's the head circumference as well. For every centimeter is 1 to 1.2 kilograms of weight on that dog. So if you're not sure of if your dog is overweight or not, or is too big or too small, go to that ratio. Go measure your dog's height and withers. Go measure your dog's head. And if they're close to each other, the weight should be close to that as well in centimeters and in kilograms. Then people will actually start noticing that how overweight their dogs are.
Mm, right.
And now,
That's
back in the day in South Africa, we fed them grit. Now, it's maize, it's ground down maize, and then anything that we had in the house extra, leftover food, soup, intestines was cooked, and that was given to the dogs. There wasn't much nutrition in that food back in the day. But now today, with especially with the kibble, they add so much vitamins and minerals to those things that the dogs are getting overfed.
exactly. I'm glad that you mentioned that. I mean, today you can go. I believe that you can. I skip days with my dogs, and I feed based off the body composition, based off the amount of activity, so based off the seasons. So these are the three things that I'm taking into consideration when I start feeding the dogs. I'm a firm believer in fasting, so I like to skip a day in between, or maybe once a week. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, should a dog, especially when you got such a high quality kibble, high nutrient concentration, high calorie kibble? What are your thoughts on fasting?
I've never actually gone to the fasting thing. It doesn't bother me much. I don't really give it a lot of. What I do is I moved back to feeding once a day.
Once a day,
Uh,
okay,
I feed only once a day in the mornings. Um, a couple of reasons for me is that is they sleep off their food in the daytime, so nighttime they're a little bit more alert.
okay,
Um, they tend to keep in their food longer in the stomachs for me. Um, so the fasting thing never doesn't bother me. I hear people say it works. For me, I think we've domesticated dogs so much that not they're not born anymore to be able to fast. Yes, they can fast. I think it's a good thing from time to time, probably. Um, it doesn't I don't use it. But the problem is we overfeeding these dogs.
over. I say
And
that.
whenever you feed, it's got a 4 to 6 weeks knock onto it. So whatever you feed the dog now, you're only going to see to 4 to 6 weeks from today.
Mm, that's
So,
interesting.
so people must realize that if you start bulking up your dog now, and then 2 weeks down the line, they see the dog, hell, the dog is not bulking up. Then they give even more food. So by the time that dog is 6 weeks down the line, you've overfed him so much, he starts adding pounds to him overnight.
Right, exactly. I know exactly what you're saying. I know exactly what you're saying. It's like the metabolism effect.
Yeah,
I
sure.
consider, yeah, the metabolism when you start to speed it up. It takes a while for the dog's metabolism to transition from eating a lot of food versus a famine, whereas not eating as much.
Yeah. Now, my personal opinion, I like to add rendered fat to my dog's food.
Hmm.
Just it's good for the intestines. In South Africa, we have a powder they call Protexin. It's a probiflora
Okay,
that we add onto our dog's food as well in South Africa, just to help with the gut health.
right.
The healthier the gut is, the more they can absorb their food, the better they can absorb their food.
Yeah,
And if
this
people, that's what people should look after. Look after your dog's gut. Then you'll see, because once if the gut is healthy, they can absorb their food better. Then you can feed them less.
exactly. Here, what I my practice, I use the green tripe, which is the cow intestines, It has a lot of probiotics, digestive enzymes. It has the enzymes that allows the dog to absorb plant matter, which they normally would not be able to digest. Um, like you said, though, because of what it is very is able to absorb much more. They get much more from the food. I think that's a big part of it. The gut health is a great indicator of the long-term health. With the more that they have, that the better. What I got a question here. It says, "What are your thoughts on allergies? Did they have? I've been seeing that occur, happening more and more with the hair loss. I always say that it's the mange. What do you think, though?
The allergies, I think, is coming these days. Is coming from all the antibiotics and steroids that's actually in our dog food. You
Mm,
must understand where our protein comes from. Our protein, it comes from slaughterhouses. Um, that's cooked down becomes protein. So there's a lot of steroids and a lot of antibiotics in these proteins that gets added into the maize. So there's two things that the bulls are, like I said, dogs are the overall. Uh, it's maize allergies
corn.
and
Okay.
corn, maize, and then all these steroids and stuff that's in foods.
Mm,
And then from time to time, you do get dogs that got grass allergies as well, certain times of the years. Um, it it was never a huge issue. We do get them from time to time with our dogs in South Africa. We got stuff like Dectomax that we inject them with.
okay.
That's a main type of cure to sort that out for us. I use cortisone creams from time to time on some of these dogs. Uh, but as a norm, it shouldn't be a huge thing. But it's food based. The allergies is food based 90% of the time.
I tend to agree. I tend to agree because oftentimes the vet, when you go to the vet, when you have a skin issue, a lot of people would say is the first thing that they say is allergies, and then when they go, they may not be able to. You go in
Are
there,
you
Nick.
there?
Yeah, I'm
Are you
still.
there?
Yeah, I'm still here. I can hear you. I
Okay.
think your camera went out though.
Okay, let's see what's going on. Yeah. Okay, oh, there you are. I think you should be back now again.
Let's see.
Are you back? Yeah.
There you go. Yep, there you go. Yeah, so it's definitely what other issues did you see? What were some other health uh issues that you had known back in the days?
We'll get back to the Brewer was prone for hip dysplasia and elbow dysplasia and stuff like that. And then in the late 90s, we started winning the war with getting dogs x-rayed and getting te- the health tests done on the dogs. Um, and I believe we must move back to that. That hip and health tests should be mandatory
Yeah,
for breeding animals.
and hit
Because if you keep on breeding bad hips together, you're going to get worse hips. If you're going to
right.
keep on breeding bad hearts together, you're going to get bad hearts. So I believe that we must bring back a mandatory health tests for breeding animals, pets. I don't care, it's a pet. But if you're going to intend to breed an animal, make sure that the dog's got a clean bill of health.
Yeah, and I think because it's not we're not able to regulate what person does with their dog, we have to really celebrate and make this information important. Make the people recognize, understand how important the health testing is, the quantifying the dog's health, and making sure that we breeding healthy animals. I think that it's important that we have to celebrate that. If we're not getting this information out, if we're not making it a priority, if we're not putting the breeder that is doing the health testing as a higher rated than the ones that are not. The dogs that are health tested are higher rated than the ones that are not. Then I think that we just end up accepting mediocrity. There is no standard. There is no bar, so to speak, as to what we're trying to accomplish. We just allowing the dogs. So that was a solution, but at the same time, it's not a be all end all. I also feel like we got to be able to measure with function. How do you propose that? we able to qualify a dog's abilities?
That's a difficult one, and we've uh, we've been discussing this in Africa where we want to bring in temperament tests as well, whereby a dog's temperament is tested in a test. Um, and then, well, dogs with a better temperament, well, they will score better on the scorecard for temperament. Because at the moment, we have a problem where we have very timid dogs that get scared very easily, that is fearful dogs, and that's not what you want in the breed at all. It must be a very confident animal.
Right,
The bull must be a confident animal. If you bring him into a ring, he must stand next to him. He must be on his. He must be alert and he must be awake. Today's dogs, you have dogs that have to drag you to the ring because it's scared of its own shadow.
right. And I
Um,
think
so for
I
that part, yeah, temperament test. I believe we must actually bring. We must work hard to bring temperament tests in, so we can actually get the temperaments. Excuse me, the temperaments back to where they were, where they should be. Um, the agility thing, the functionality, that's a difficult. Is difficult because function for me and function for somebody else is two different things.
right.
For
Just
normal for normal homeowner and living in the suburbs, well, he doesn't want a dog that can. He's not in need of a dog that can run 4 kilometers or 5 kilometers and jump on the back of of a pickup. For me, I like my dogs that must be able to run, and I want my dogs to be able to jump on the back of a pickup. Um, at least run to the gate and come back without being out of breath.
right. Yeah. Yeah, we about to
Um,
pass out to get you a big bowl of water or whatever.
Yeah, so it's difficult. I would like to hear people's opinion on how we can test that.
Yeah.
It doesn't
I
make it. I'm we listen to. I'm willing to listen to anything to see how we can uh, test functionality of the dogs better and temperament better. There is a standard little test that the guys from Cape Town started off, basic test, the temperament test, gunshot, goes off to see how a dog reacts to the gunshot. Now, it can have a fright when it hears the gunshot, but it must immediately relax and come back to its original state again. Dog aggression on dog aggression. You walk past two dogs. You walk past dogs to see how the dog aggression are. You run with a wheelbarrow past them to see how fearful they are of strange objects. So there is a basic test that we already started down in Cape, and I think we need to take it further to do the temperament test as well, um, because again, if we keep on breeding fearful dogs to fearful dogs to fearful dogs, you're not having a guardian breed.
exactly. Exactly. He's got to be confident. One of the things that I really to do in my personal breeding program is I'm handling my puppies every day. I've noticed the difference when you go to a place because I visited multiple kennels and breeding programs. If the dogs are not closely associated with humans, they tend to lack the confidence. I know that when the dog turns to run away from when the people that I look for puppies to run towards you when you come, they're eager to become involved versus some puppies that not been handled, um, they turn to shy away. And I think that translates into adulthood also because it's heavily ingrained from the beginning. It's kind of like the way you start is how you finish. So I feel like the breeder plays a big role in building confidence, building courage, right?
Yeah.
And because, like you said, it's part of it is in the genes, and then the rest of it has to do with the way that the environment shapes the dog. If you're not allowing the dog to become and building that confidence and that courage, or exposing the dog to these different situations, like you said, the gunshots, the cars riding past, the wheelbarrow, so on and so forth, it's a very strange and unfamiliar territory for the dog. A big part of it for me is getting the dog familiar with the unfamiliar. I preach that. I practice that.
See, now, that's why for me, I never sell my pups under 12 weeks.
Okay.
Because for the first 12 weeks of a pup's development,
Right.
that will basically give you what that dog will become, not most of the time. That's what the dog will give you in the future. So for
Right.
the first 12 weeks, I make sure I socialize my pups. I play with them a lot. They have strange people playing with them, walking in, have balls, give them balls to run around with, have some plastic bags making a noise around them. So they get used to strange sounds. And after 12 weeks, then I will let my pups go because then they are really all set and their temperament is already, you can see which one's got the better temperament, which one's got the more timber temperament. And it's not set in stone, it can change, depends on the owner taking it further from there. But at least I've given it the pup a good grounding to start off with.
Right. I read books. One of the a lot of the trainers and dog behaviorists, they call that the critical period for socialization is up to 12 weeks. So
Yeah.
what I tend to do is once my puppy, if they still with me at 8 weeks, or as soon as they start getting their first set of shots, I'm taking them out. I'm getting them familiar with the different smells in the environment. The dog is heavily nose oriented. They smell oriented first. They see the world through their nose. So at 8 weeks old, I feel like it's important to expand their territory and start to expose them into different territories, people, smells, different sounds in terms of building that. I'm glad that you mentioned that up to 12 weeks. This is some information that the readers pay attention. This is how you're going to get better with results from your puppies. By making it a priority to socialize and handle the dogs up until 12 weeks to build that confidence, because we do not want to have a Boerboel that's a big dog, that's scary, that's shy. They, to me, they look better when they have that confidence, that nature, when they stand with their chest up, with their head up, versus that dog that's shy and cowering away. You can barely get them to stay. I want that with the tail erect, and he's standing there, alert, confident expression, and his head is, on a swivel, looking up, standing proud, standing tall. It makes a big difference. You can't get that. It's hard to get that from a shy, a scarier type of dog.
The problem with a shy, scary dog as well, that's your fear biters.
Yeah.
A dog has got self confidence. I'm not scared of those dogs. I'm scared of the dog that's scared and shy and hides behind his owner and cowers away. Because that's the dog that will lash out and bite you.
Yeah, and he's not biting out of protection. He's biting because he's scared for his life. He doesn't know what's going to happen. He doesn't feel confident, and I think that's. I'm glad that we highlighting that. You know, any dog could be put into a situation that's going to cause for it to bite. But we want to make sure that it's a decision that is warranted. It's not because I'm scared. It's not because I'm in fear of my life.
Yeah,
Right.
the very first thing of the Boerboel, it must have a stable temperament.
Right. Yeah. So I feel we gotta work more towards coming up with a way to measure the temperament. It should be some responses, a scale of 1 to 10. Like you said, with the gunshot, that would be a great test. Because we may have the gunshots. A loud noise will be a great test. What do you think would be some good? I'm very I, I'm a big proponent of agility, though. My thoughts for a way to measure function was a 10-minute run. How the dog should be able to run for 10 minutes straight, and then be able to cover a measured distance in that 10 minutes. I think a
First,
mile.
first you have to get the owners fit first.
Right. Yeah, that's where we go. That's where we go. That's where we go run into some kit pushback, a little pushback. But it can be done. We don't want to force anyone. Like if this is something that you want to participate in, this is something that you want to do, then cool. Then let's go. Let's just market measure it for what it's worth. But and those the ones that are doing it. That's what makes dog breeding tough, because there is no like a regulatory. There is no regulations to say, okay, if you're gonna be a dog breeder, this is what you have to. This is the test that you have to take. This is the license that you have to get. This is the certification that you have to get. Basically, anybody that get two dogs can call themselves a dog breeder. But in order to be a true dog person, a dog enthusiast, is different. It's different levels of that. It's different levels to that. And with the but for the is that's where it comes in to educating the consumer, and I think that's a big part of what's not happening because people are making uninformed decisions, and then it's like, okay, we got us a dog. Let's get them. Let's start to breed them. This is a nice little side hustle. I see people making money selling dogs, and I need to make some money, and I'm gonna go ahead and get me a dog, and I'm gonna try to make some extra money. And that's so far from the truth of the dog. If you're looking at it from a business standpoint, as an investment, like you're trying to make some money, I would go buy a pickup truck or some landscaping equipment if I was trying to make some money. I breed dogs because I love dogs, and I would the value there for me is I can always have a dog. I'm always around puppies. That's the true value because I love dogs. The dog is like priceless to me. So that's how I explain it to people.
So what we must do is, you see, that's the problem, and this is where all the organizations worldwide must take hands and say, right, guys, us as SABS, NABA, World Organization, whatever, we must say, guys, we're making it too easy for people to breed dogs. For you to become a breeder, you must first do a 2 year apprenticeship under a senior breeder. You must write an exam about the breed standard, do an animal husbandry course. Um, do something before you can go and just start breeding because people just randomly buy two dogs now, and now suddenly they're breeders and they
Right.
put anything together. It's the wrong bloodlines, it's the wrong two dogs. I've seen how many times now that people buy two dogs, a couple of weeks, 2 years later, suddenly they're breeders now. Then you look at the dogs, and they were never supposed to be bred with. They were bought as pets, and they are not superior breeding animals. But now they're trying to make a quick buck. They're putting two random dogs together, and they call themselves breeders.
Right. And it's like you can't it's going to be very hard. It's going to be hard for us to distinguish that because people can start off as a pet owner and then decide, okay, I want to breed. So I think that, like you said, that if we can get the organizations involved, I'm not against any organization. I would like to be, let's just, I've always been an advocate for inclusivity. And that way we can kind of set levels because there are different levels of breeder. This is definitely different classes of dogs and dog breeders, right? You got, like you said, you got the people, and I don't think that the way that the laws are set up here in the United States, there is no way to stop a person from doing that with their dog, from breeding the dog. But it's the role of an organization to kind of set the tone as to what we are going to prioritize, what are we going to champion. We need to recognize breeders that's doing the hard work, that's making these that's putting the best foot forward in terms of animal husbandry, caring for their dogs, going above and beyond in terms of health testing and measuring, quantifying the dog's abilities and so on and so forth, because that is a way to inform the public so they can make better decisions. Because if people knew better, they would do better, and because they don't, they just buy what is available, or and then people weren't able to sell their dogs, then that would make it hard for
You
them
see,
to
this,
breed dogs.
you see, and that's the problem we sit with now, because people buy random dogs, they don't understand the breed standard. We must go back to the breed standard. We must drill this into all people, breeders, pet owners, understand the breed standard.
Right.
Not randomly read through it. Understand actually what does it mean. Um,
Yeah, I
and
think.
it's not that difficult. There's a lot of videos out there in the internet that explains breed standards of different breeds to you. And what's the function of that onto your dog? Why do we have the Boerboel at a certain height and not higher? Why must males be bigger? Why did we dock tails back in the day? Why don't we want fleshy lips?
Right.
These days, I see this popping up everywhere. We have dogs got these enormous, huge hanging lips. Um, First of all, that is not a Boerboel. They're not supposed to have these huge, fleshy, hanging lips. They should have a nice, tight mouth.
Hmm.
Um, but
Why is that
unfortunately,
though?
people
Why?
buy these dogs because they think it's the breed standard. It's not the breed standard. That's wrong.
Why do you say that the dog should not have the huge fleshy lips?
Well, this is you must understand what the dog. What's the function of the Boerboel? The Boerboel was is a guarding breed. It protects his property. It protects the homeowner. Back in the days when we still had a lot of vermin running around, jackals and hyenas and stuff running around, if they get engaged in the fight, you don't want the lips in the way
Right.
because now you have this huge, massive, fleshy lip in the way, and the dog bites down. Now it bites his own lip, so it leaves, it disengages.
Right. When
It's
the
not
dog
part of the
and
breed standard. It's
I
supposed to have a nice, tight lip. Um, and now you have all these huge hanging lips. First of all, it does not resemble a Boerboel. It resembles a Mastiff, or it resembles a Neapolitan Mastiff.
Neapolitan master. Right.
Right. So you got too much skin in their face, and you got these huge, massive, fleshy lips. Now, if you go clearly and you understand the breed standard, um, if you take those huge, fleshy lips away, you'll actually see the nose bone underneath that is very weak.
Mm.
So we must go back to the breed standard. Mm, big, overweight, fat dogs, they're not in the breed standard. Big, fleshy lips, hanging, looking like Neapolitan Mastiffs. It's wrong. It's not in the breed standard. Um, Over exaggerated heads is not in the breed standard.
Mm.
These
So that
very heavy dogs, 200-pound dogs, it's not in the breed standard. The Boerboel must be a balanced dog.
balance.
And the
That's
moment we go back to balance, you'll have good health.
mm. I'm glad that you mentioned that. That's very interesting that you say that because I've always been of the mindset that that is a definite. I noticed that when they bite, they tend to injure their lips when you're doing that when they have all of that excess droop. The reason for that excessive wrinkling, and when you start talking about those gladiator dogs like the mastiff, remember they
Yes.
were pitting, they were having matches where those would go up against bears, they would go up against they had and that may have served them well, and that will when they're going up against a bear or something in that they don't, and now they would, all of that loose skin, the bear can't just grab them as good or whatever. I really feel that it's important for us to, like you said, I'm glad that you mentioned that balance is key, not exaggerations. We want to get breed away from exaggerations, head to toe. The dog should be, um, it's in the breed standard. It says, I can't think of the exact term, but head to toe, it should be about as tall as it is long. No,
Correct. Now, again, in nature, anything exaggerated in nature will get pushed out eventually.
right.
If a dog is too heavy in nature, if a wolf is too heavy in nature, he will not be able to follow the pack. It will not be able to eat. It will die.
So
If a wolf have big fleshy lips, it will not be able to take down prey because um, he'll bite his lip the whole time and he'll disengage the prey the whole time. There's reasons why breed standards are written in certain ways, and we must follow these breed standards.
mm.
Because if you don't follow the breed standard, what do you have? You just have another dog.
So let me ask you this then. So what are your thoughts on the colors? The black dogs, the
I'm a, I'm a, I'm from the old school still where the Boerboel was didn't have all these fancy colors. They had the browns, the browns, the reds, the brindles. Later on, years the black dogs came in. Now I see we have lilacs and the rotties came in now and the dilutes. That was all DQs for us, and I'm a staunch believer that stay by your breed standard.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, from time to time, back even those days, the liver noses were there and the pounder dogs were there, but they were pets. They were never bred with again.
Right. So
Now it's the market is dictating to breeders now to breed these funny colors. Now, for me as a historical Boerboel breeder, I stick to the old colors. And and in the 12 years, 13 years that I've been breeding now, just by following the right bloodlines, I haven't bred a strange color yet.
mm,
Because I know the bloodlines to follow. Um, Again, it's a market thing. Um, for me, uh, I stick to the breed standard, and I believe you should all stick to the breed standard because that's what the dog should be. In South Africa, a couple of years ago, we had all these exotic, funny color in the game industry popping in. We had Impala, black Impalas is an antelope in South Africa, selling for hundreds of thousands of rands, where a normal one would have cost a couple of thousand rand.
right.
And a couple of years down the line now, that market has crashed and burned completely. A lot of farmers has lost millions of millions because of this color variance they brought in back in the day. Um, by bringing in color variants, you're bringing in what else are you not bringing in?
Right. Do you add and you introduce something? I so what do you think about the dogs that are being tested DNA tested as 100% Boerboel, even though that they have these other variants of colors? How does that? What does that mean for the DNA test?
Remember, okay, number one, there is no test for the Boerboel yet. There is no test that can say that this is 100% Boerboel.
What? Why you say
There
that?
is, there is no test. There is no test that can say that this dog. If I get a random blood sample and send it to the lab, telling what breed is this, they cannot tell me it's a Boerboel. There is no marker for it yet. You can say the parents are Boerboels by DNA comparison, but there is no DNA marker yet for the Boerboel.
That's what I've been
Uh,
saying the whole time. I said this the whole time. I said the DNA test. What are they comparing it to?
there
What are they?
is no marker yet for the Boerboels, as far as I know. Up until a couple of days ago, there is no marker for the Boerboel yet. Um, Now, the color variants, right? The colors have always been there, the strange colors. The, the Rottweiler only came in a couple of years ago with Cabaret. Um, Before that, we had the dilutes, we had the liver noses. They were there, but they were not bred with. We they there is no we didn't use them as breeding stock. It was frowned upon to use them as well. And for that reason, we got to the point in Africa where they weren't very prolific anymore. So in the Americas and UK now, they got all these color variants because they're breeding the color variants to each other now.
Mm,
Now, my problem with that is if you breed all these different color variants together, um, compounding this now, what else are you compounding into these dogs?
yeah, we don't know. We don't know until we find out. So let me ask you this. I was gonna say, I kind of forgot my question. I should have wrote that down. So okay, closed stud book, open registry, registry. What are your thoughts on that? So because inevitably in that we cannot breed within a closed gene pool indefinitely, or how long can we breed within the closed gene pool? What are your thoughts? Is that beneficial for the breed?
So you're talking about the development register.
Yeah, development register. Do we have a development register? Is that something that is good for the dogs to have to be allow dogs that fit into the breed standard may not have the known history behind them? Do we still include those dogs, or because we don't know the history? What are your thoughts?
I'm on two minds on this. On the one, I want the development register closed completely. but we cannot be naive as well. There is dogs out there. Now, the development register is not to bring in any funny bloodlines. The development registers that bring in dogs that we lost somehow due to bad paperwork or the they didn't fill in paperwork correctly. That's what it's there for. Whereby you have a dog that has been standing on a guy's farm. He bought it from one of his Boerboel friends 5 years ago, and suddenly you get in this guy's farm and he's got this beautiful male, and you can see this dog is correct. It can actually bring something to the table for the breed. Um, that's what the development register is for. It's not to bring in just random dogs and say, right, but let's add it into the development register and let's see what it does. And any dog that you bring in into the development register as well, you must ring fence that dog's prodigy to make sure and monitor that extremely well to see what is happening with that prodigy. What is it bringing it in? It's not just a willy nilly, let's add dogs to the development register. We must really uh, make sure that if we bring in something like that, that it will positively bring in positive function back to the Boerboel. For me personally, I can't see any use for it anymore. People say we got a small gene pool. I don't think we've got a small gene pool.
Mhm.
I think we've got enough there's still a lot of going back to artificial insemination and stuff. There's still a lot of the old dog semen out there that can still be used in artificial insemination. Um, we had in some cases we have popular science syndrome, where some males were used too much, and that closed down a lot of dogs. But after a couple of years, people open up their eyes again, and then they start moving into another direction as well to get rid of those bloodlines again. So for me, I'm in two minds about the development. If we keep it open, we must be extremely careful of what you add into that to bring it into the gene pool of the Boerboel.
My thoughts personally, I appreciate that. My personal thoughts, I'm tend to agree some, but at the same time, we got a very unique situation when here in the United States when we start talking about commercialized dog breeding. Remember, the Boerboel was, we looking for the popular dogs. We don't have as much of a gene pool as the motherland in South Africa. We were the popular dogs tended to be exported. The higher dogs, scored dogs, or the bigger dogs, or whatever. We don't have as much of a very varied gene pool here in the United States as the dogs that may be available in the in South Africa. So it presents a problem for us long term because we are working with very limited very variance of the breed. Then it becomes a very real possibility of us breeding ourselves into a corner where we don't have, we only stuck to work with. Let's say eventually some form of a mutation will arrive. We don't know exactly what it is, what the mutation will be, but we will be stuck. And this has happened. This is in preservation dog breeding or species preservation heritage breeding. This is something that we're not measuring for performance. We're not able to measure how much milk is being produced. We're not able to measure how much, certain measurements to determine if this function is being enhanced or decreased, right? So if we're not able to measure the performance or evaluate, are we going in the right direction or the wrong direction? This is more than just a visual appeal. And so in order for us to get that, it could become it could become a problem. And I'm just thinking in the long term. That was one of the original questions that I always had with the Boerboel. Should we be line breeding or inbreeding, or should we be looking for unrelated dogs that trying to maintain the hybrid vigor?
For me, you see, not a lot of people understand line breeding and inbreeding. um, and then bring in breeding vigor. Um, for me, I stick to my bloodlines that I know of. I stick to my Avontuur lines and I stick to my Pion lines because that's the dogs that I know that don't have funny genes in them.
The,
I
that's where
steer clear.
Jonah.
I steer clear of certain dogs. There's certain dogs in the industry that I steer clear of completely
Right.
because I know what they can bring in, or what's in their dogs. Um, so for me, is that's why I said the gene pool for me is big. I can, yes, there was only 73 dogs back in the day, but in between over the years, we can say what we want. Especially in the earlier days, um, there were still other breeds introduced into the Boerboel as well.
What
Uh,
breeds?
uh, that was uh, uh, slipped in back
No.
in in the 80s because they looked like Boerboels.
Right.
And it may have been 50% pit bull, 50% Boerboel. We don't know.
Mm.
So there's more genes in the Boerboel as people think. There's not 73 purebred Boerboels. Even those 73 dogs, they were crossbreeds,
The
some
beginning
sort of
part.
a crossbreed.
Talking about the foundation of
Yeah,
the
they were not pure Boerboels. There was no tests for them. There was no DNA taken. They resembled the breed standard the best, and that's why they were taken in. What was their heritage? We don't know.
right.
The mother and the father resembled the Boerboel. They resembled the Boerboel. They fitted the breed standard the best, and that was the foundation dogs of the foundation dogs. So it's for people saying that we got a very small gene pool. I don't believe we do have a very small gene pool. I think we've got quite a big gene pool.
So you say yours you say that the gene pool is diverse. That
It's
is there.
diverse completely.
Yeah, and some of the studies that I have read have listed the Boerboel as having one of the most diverse DNA genetics. So I think
Um,
that because if you're comparing it to a breed that's been standardized for 100 years, like say maybe a English bulldog or a golden retriever or something like that, that's been standardized for over a century, or like the bull mastiff, then they might not have as much variation. But when you're talking about a breed that was not far removed from the farm, 1983, you started at the inception of the breed, and you start with a bunch of different mixed dogs, then it does make sense for it to have a bunch of different varieties or variations, and that's why we see the different styles and the types popping up, because those dogs from the foundation were not exactly 100% purebred dogs.
I said the Boerboel is now being recognized for 40 years, 41 years this year. Now, if it comes to dog breeds, that's quite a newish dog breed still.
Right.
If you take it against something like the Bull Mastiff, that's been for over 100 years, breed stand hasn't been changed for over 100 years. Um, so all dogs were crossbreed sometime.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
so we are still in the beginning stages of a breed. At 40 years, uh, recognized as a breed. Before that, they were for many years. Before that, they were there as Boerboels. Um, but as recognized for 40 years, it's still actually a very new breed.
Yeah, it's still in its refinement processes, and that's why we see these different varieties and
But
styles. Man,
if you
I
look at
really
another thing that people must start looking at is looking at your coefficient. See how much inbreeding you are doing. Now, if you go on the SABBS system, you can go and check your inbreeding coefficients. And if you go, you can get quite low on your inbreeding coefficients. If you really going to do your homework and you're going to look for the right bloodlines, you can drop your inbreeding coefficients quite down, quite low to under 3%. At the moment, I think we're sitting at an average of about 7%. And according to Studbook, that's too high. We must get that lower. Then I see certificates now with dogs that's got 16 and 18% inbreeding.
Mm.
And that's shutting down your own gene pool when you allow that. When you use breed allow these huge inbreedings to happen.
Yeah, me personally, I feel like you get your best dogs when you start to breed common characteristics and traits, which will be phenotypes that you have the exact phenotype, the look that you're looking for, versus uh the genotype. You're not trying to match up genes. You're looking for the with. So I'm looking for different genetic variants, genes that are variant, but I'm looking for the exact phenotype that I'm looking for.
And that's another thing that's actually lost traction in South Africa. 10 years ago, when you walked into a show, you could have said, you could stood there, you could say, right, that's a cabaret dog, that's a peon dog. You could see the different phenotypes. Today, with all these fly by night breeders, well, everything looks different these days.
Yeah, and
They
it's not no phenotype. I see that happening a lot, and that's why I always put it out there exactly what I'm breeding for, the totality of the dog from head to toe. I want a working dog, a running dog that is still large, that's got some big size and stuff. I don't want it just I don't never want it to be all one way where it's just like I don't want it to just be one sided. You know what I'm saying? I wanted to have some. I want a big dog that can move. And I think a lot of breeding programs, they just breeding dogs. They're not necessarily. They don't have no goal. They don't have no ambition. Not to criticize, but if you want to really take the dog to the best, to its highest peak, you got to have some form of a goal that you're trying to accomplish with your breedings. You got to have a vision. You got to have a plan. With this dog, it might be a little bit easty westy in the front, so I want to correct that. This dog might be having, I want to improve the top line. I think that he's a good dog, but there's some things that I don't like. So me personally, in my breeding program right now, I'm looking to strengthen up my pasterns. Strengthen up my pasterns. I'm trying to really put out some really looking for some strong pasterns in the front and the male. I want those feet to be tight. That's just tend to be what we lacking. I don't know why. Why is it like that? But that's just my goals. So we should be able to make our goals of our breeding programs apparent. It should be clear cut. And that way we're breeding toward, we have a direction that we're trying to go in versus just having puppies, that satisfy the market or to make some money and put some dollars in our pocket.
that's very important. And we must hammer this down onto the breeders. What is your breeding program? What is your plan? Because if you ask 90% of the breeders, if you ask them what's his breeding program, he's going to look at you funny and say, "What do you mean?" They just put random dogs together and hope to get something good.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm breeding. They say I'm breeding towards this dog, and everybody I'm trying to go, da 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 times. And that's called that paperwork. You're a paper breeder. You're not really looking at the dog that's in front of your eyes and trying to make the best decision to go forward. Or you don't have a goal for your final dog, like the perfect dog that fits in my life. Me being the type of person that I am, I'm active. I like to exercise. I want to get out, and I want to have a dog that can keep up. Man, there's nothing more embarrassing to me than I get out on a run with my dog, and then the dog just conks out. He can't even continue. He has to go. I gotta call in a rescue wagon or a truck to somebody to come pick us up because the dog refuses to continue. That type of dog is an easy way for you to be eliminated from the breeding program.
See, but Jordan, that's a problem. People are not ruthless anymore. You must be able to see the faults in your dogs. And you must be able to say, but listen, this is wrong. We shouldn't breed these dogs together. Um, as a responsible breeder, you must say, well, this female is too butch. Um, I will stand up now. I had one of the South Africa. I had a female here. She rocked all the shows in South Africa. Um, but she was too butch. If I
Mm.
go back to myself today, we must stop lying to ourselves. And I was go back to myself and said, Nico, but you were one of the people that created this problem by showing these butch females and letting them win.
Mm,
Now, as the chairman of SABS, I should have known better. I should have said, "But guys, this is wrong." I should have stepped back and said, I should not show this dog because I'm creating the market now for this now because people see these dogs in the show ring and say, "But oh, that's what's winning the shows. That's what I want."
that's what I want. I want me a show winner. I want that. That's what exactly what I want. But you can't don't be too hard on yourself, because at the end of the day, I mean, it's still an impressive dog, and it's still a good looking dog. And so people get that idea. That might be something that they will see anyway and choose over that feminine, the smaller dog that maybe not as impressive, but it's still is a good dog. I feel like I really look forward to that. Just the very petite, refined, feminine, just a girly type of a girl dog, a girly type of a female dog. I feel like they're the best producers. They don't have to be overly large. When you come across those dogs, that is the dog that we really need to champion. That is the dog that we really need to celebrate as a female. So it's hard to it's a mix of both world, the best of both worlds. When you start talking about the feminine style dogs, you're taking them to the market for what the people want, and you got to make tough decisions. You got to make some tough calls.
You see, those tough calls must start from all organizations worldwide. The judges and the appraisers worldwide um, of all the organizations must be get tougher on these appraisals and at shows. We must not let these dogs win. That is so over exaggerated
Mm,
because again, uh, people see these dogs win and that's what they want. If you
right.
start if you're gonna have the female starting winning again, and the balanced dogs starting to win again, and the dogs with the nice tight lips win shows again, people will say, "But okay, that's what they want." That's and go back. What does the breed standard says? Say, is that dog within the breed standard? Yes, it is within the breed standard. These big, heavy, uh, 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 butch females, over exaggerated males, too big lip. It's not in the breed standard.
Yeah.
You're manipulating the breed standard to suit your breeding practices. You must change your breeding practices to suit the breed standard.
Mm. I think I'm glad that you mentioned that. It's important for us to highlight why these things in the breed standard are important. What are these things? What are these things that the breed standard is seeking out? Why that it's important? Yeah, so that when we are able to make those distinctions, I think that it gives the person, it informs the person, the buyer, why this is correct, why this is incorrect, why do we want this, why do we not want this? Like the way that we are explaining about the butch females, even though they may appear impressive with the exaggerated and extreme muscling, we still they're not the best mothers. They don't have the natural births. They have to have the C-sections. They have the lower litters, so on and so forth. But if the information is not available, we tend to think that, oh, this really looks, the eyes, we very different from a dog. Humans see the world through their eyes. We're visual. So when you look at something and it looks impressive, we tend to think that it has more value, or these extremities, is not commonly seen. Then you say, well, this must be special because it's not something that is often seen. It's rare, and we want something that nobody else have. We want something that others don't have. So because of that, we tend to make poor decisions, or not the best decisions for the breed going forward. And so that's where the role of the organization comes in. And that's why I like that. That's why I'm glad. I didn't know that you were a chairman of the SABS. I did not know that.
Oh yeah, I was the vice chairman for a couple of years, and last year I was voted in as the chairman of SABS.
Oh wow. So yeah, that's deep. That's deep. I did not know that. Well, you know what? I don't want to take up too much of your time because I know that it's late there, and I'm glad that you were able to stay up
It's
for as
quarter
long.
past 2 in the morning here.
It's to quarter past two. Yeah, and then we it's gone. Maybe we'll figure out some times that we could get back on earlier in the day. You know, we were supposed to have some other guests that come in. Today was a day. So with our organization, I got my own organization that we founded here. Come get the baby, please. I founded the organization here. We're trying to learn. We want to be more inclusive. We're not trying to hijack the Boerboel, okay? We're not trying to take over. It's the South African Boerboel. We're not trying to make the American Boerboel. We don't want it to be original, and we don't want it to be like a totally new breed, right? That's not what's going on here. All we're trying to do is be inclusive. We want to be able to inform people, to inform the public, let people know where, you know, because many people still have never seen a Boerboel. And you know, the first time that you see a Boerboel, what is somebody is labeled as a Boerboel, may not be the correct version, may not be the correct identity that we are trying to seek out. You know, I don't want to get away from the South African objectives and goals for what they have for the breed. What you have for, I mean, it's a South African breed. It's not the American Boerboel. So I want to be true to form, true to the standard in my breeding practices, and that's why I've always coveted the most athletic mastiff. Would you agree that the not the most athletic dog, but of the mastiff breeds, it's what originally attracted me to the Boerboel was the most athletic mastiff, the most healthy of mastiff. Is
I
that
agree
true?
100%. I agree 100% with you there. Um, for me, the Boerboel out there is probably one of the most impressive dogs in the dog world. If you see a nice big male standing next to you, there's not a lot of breeds that can impose that size of those dogs and how well they look and how athletic they are. Um, and the and I agree with you that they of the master breeds, yes, they are the most athletic and most balanced of the lot of them.
Right. So part of what we're trying to do here, and I don't know how you know what your thoughts on this is, but we want to have this a rare breeds. It's a lot of different rare breeds. You got the Presa Canario, the Neapolitan Mastiff, the big dogs that people are the Rottweilers, the Cane Corsos. It's a lot of different rare breeds. And like you said, I feel like the Boerboel can hold its own against any of those breeds, but we want to be able to we want to bring all of those together on a platform, sometime where we can really just highlight what the Boerboel has to offer. I got great confidence in the breed, and I think that this is something that is needed. We want to be able to do it more often and have a big inclusion and a big sampling of the breed so people can really see what the breed has to offer, because there's so much. It's so much. With Nico, we're gonna close it out, man. We've been going for an hour and a half here. I
How is
really
that?
appreciate you. I really appreciate you joining and giving us some insight. Like I said, we not trying to take over. We're not trying to, claim this as our own. We're here to celebrate the breed. We love the dogs. The Boerboel is the best breed of dog on earth. We feel like they get it's a certain amount of recognition that they deserve. We here to celebrate the breed. So I thank you for joining us. I really appreciate your time that you spent. You want to recap your final thoughts on today's talk?
Yeah. To recap, um, we must go back to what the bull was supposed to be. Supposed to be athletic, well balanced dog. Um, Nothing is over exaggerated on them. Um, Health is important. Um, we must go back to the breed standard. These loose, fleshy lips, over exaggerated heads, very heavy dogs. That's not in the breed standard. Go and read the breed standard of the Boerboel. Go. the regional breed standard of the Boerboel from the land of origin, because a lot of the breed standard worldwide has been changed for that countries. So please go to the SABBS website, go and see the breed standard, what it was written for, and then measure your dog against that. As I said before, the Boerboel is a 1 to 1.2 ratio, height versus head circumference versus weight. And then you tell me yourself, then where does your dog fall into that to that picture, and how close to the breed standard are you then? Don't lie to yourself. We must stop lying to ourselves. We must be frank and be open and say, right, guys, we are moving in the wrong direction, this way, but we're moving in the right direction that way. Again, I believe, yeah, health test. We must actually hammer back on health tests again. So make sure that the animals are healthy.
Yeah. Well, definitely. I agree a lot of majority everything that you said. I would like to, if you maybe we could get you to bring some pictures, some illustrations of what is the exactly correct. So that way we don't deviate. If we can get some like real examples of what is the ideal, so we can work actively pursue what is the correct breed standard. Because I feel like a lot of it is open to interpretation. You read one thing, we both reading the same things, but to me that means different than what you're saying. Like the headpiece, when it says the prominent feature of the breed, that's saying big, but that clearly you're saying right now that may not be correct, right?
It must be proportional. It must be balanced.
It's got to be proportion. It's got to be balanced.
If you take a Boerboel and you close the head part of the Boerboel, and you take it, does it match the size of the body? Vice versa, does the forequarter match the back quarter? If you start playing, so if something shoots out that doesn't match, the dog is not balanced.
Okay, I'm glad that you explained it like that. That's a good way to put it.
If you take the dog, you stand for a couple of meters, and you close the front half of the dog, and you look at the hindquarters, right, and you see, right, how should the front part of that dog look? And you remove your hand, and the front part of that dog is too big or too small, then it's not in balance.
Right. Well, yeah, we got to get you back. So you can give us some more explanations. We'll work it out. I'll be in contact with you again.
Yes, we've got a representative in America as well, Joseph Phillips. I will ask him as well if he's interested as well, maybe to come and join us next time as well.
Yeah, tell Joseph Phillips I say hello. I will be definitely welcoming him to come on to the show, and you can welcome to come back. We're gonna work out some times.
Again, just quickly on the examples, the Senior President of Africa has written. We are busy writing a whole new presentation that we're going to do at our workshops, and soon that will be available. So yeah, I will see if I can get some illustrations for you guys as well.
Thank you so much, Nico. Appreciate your time. Thank you everyone that joined us. I hope that y'all gain some invaluable insight from today's episode. We'll be back. We got much more to offer. We got much more. So stay tuned, board buddies. This is a valuable experience. I'm honored really to have you here today, and I really appreciate your time. Everybody that joined in, I picked up some information. I hope that y'all did too. We'll be back again soon. Stay tuned.
No rush, go on, move dumb. Back and forth, push and shove. Make your peace and love turn to peace and gloves. Now you got a deal run up. No rush, go on, move dumb. Back and forth, push and shove. Make your peace and love turn to peace and now you got a deal.